every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Rise and grind, take flight. Hey, feel the unity, the proud electrified. There under the stadium lights, where legends thrive. Every touchdown we're close to clock west. In Detroit we stand. Get out there. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Red football dreams in every shout. Feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Rise and Grind Morning Show. Got an action-packed day for you guys this morning. Good morning, Eric. How are you today?
Oh, fantastic as always. Woke up to 3 inches of new snow outside, so world couldn't be better.
We've had like a foot of snow over the last couple of days here. It's a soft, fluffy stuff, though. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
But roads are icy out there, so be careful, people.
Yeah.
So, man, we got a lot to talk about today, and we've got a huge segment that I'm going to be finally doing, which is the sacks versus turnovers. I'm going to get it in today because I tried to get it in last night. Happened to be on the phone for a couple hours when I was trying to put it together, which is not a big deal. It's just I wanted to get it done last night, so it's still fresh in everybody's mind. But we're going to do it today, probably the second hour after we get through the NFL news and Lions news today. But right away with your NFL news this morning, we're going to talk about the Texans moving on from Deontay Johnson briefly. Honestly, could care less, but briefly. Confidence rankings, all 8 teams. Where do they rank? What type of confidence do people see right now in the last 8 teams? Prisco's picks, not that I really care what he thinks, but I'm interested. I'm interested at least to see where his picks are lining up, because we know that Pete Prisco really hasn't ever given the Lions any love, period, ever. And then Myles Garrett. What did Myles Garrett say yesterday, or this week at least, and what's happening there? So we've heard a lot of rumors where, we should sign Myles Garrett in the offseason. We should spend $25-30 million on Myles Garrett in the offseason. And we're going to tell you what Myles Garrett thinks about that. Then we got Lions news. Coaching update on Ben Johnson. Everything that I've been talking about this week, probably coming true. 3 reasons why Raiders might be the perfect fit for Ben. I'm going to try to find 3 reasons today. And Eric's got an update on another coach. Then we're going to get into the injury report and then the RPO versus the Detroit Lions, which is a big segment. And then also sacks versus turnovers today. RPO versus the Lions, man, that's going to be an interesting one. We've got a lot of information to share. So what's on top of your head this morning, Eric? What's going on?
Just it's so refreshing that we had this week off and we're able to relax. And now we get an opponent like the Commanders. So this is somebody fresh, somebody new. We're not playing the same team for the 3rd time. There's no Matt Stafford coming back to town stuff for at least for a week. And so it's a real refreshing week in the NFL for being a Lions fan. It's awful nice.
I don't know who got a day off. I know I didn't take a day off. Glad they got a day off. So anyway, good morning to everybody in the chat. Real quick, got a couple of updates. We'd like to get to 75 likes so we can get the ads turned off right away for you guys this morning. You guys have been doing an excellent job all week. We've had at least, over 1,000 new subscribers in the last week or so. And I think we've hit 8,250, or we might hit 8,250 today. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, if you hit 8,250 today, we'll give a mini helmet out while we're live today. Matter of fact, we're just like 10 subscribers short. So I'm sure we can get that done today. No problem. Got 2 hours to get it done. So business spotlight, right? Business spotlight of the day. Eric, we spoke about this one earlier in the week, and this one is tied to Amon-Ra St. Brown. And this is Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of giving back to a local bakery that created this full-size cake of him of doing that upside down headstand. So let's bring in this new spotlight, and then I want to share something from yesterday's spotlight. So I did not expect anything back from this, but it happened. So here we go. Oh no, it's all messed up. What happened? There we go. The Home Bakery Cake and Confection Company it's Rochester, right? They're in Rochester, Michigan.
Rochester, Michigan.
All right, look at these cookies, man. They got some Detroit Lions cookies. They got some cake, which is temporarily unavailable. I guess everybody bought it out. And you got some football cookies. So if you're looking for game day stuff for this weekend, you guys should probably pop in to this bakery, the Home Bakery, Cake and Confection Company in Rochester, Michigan. Of course, they're the ones that made that upside-down cake for Amon-Ra St. Brown, but Amon-Ra stepped up in a big way. So what he's doing, what he announced on his podcast, is that he's going to be giving back through playoff tickets. So he was giving everybody an opportunity to win between January 13th and January 16th. So tomorrow's the last day that if you go in there and purchase something, you're going to be entered in a raffle to win playoff tickets to this weekend's game, which is absolutely incredible. So today's playoff spotlight is the Home Bakery Cake and Confection Company. Go check them out today, guys. I think it's pretty neat what they did for Amon-Ra St. Brown just out of the blue. But something tells me with all my years in marketing, that cake wasn't just made out of the blue. They did that on purpose. That was a good choice. That was a good choice. Man, they hit the nail right on the head, right? They were working on that one for a while.
Yeah. Super smart move. So it's just like this right behind me here. It's 6 foot tall. It's life-size cake. It's real cake. They're going to keep it up until after the Super Bowl. And I'm going to try to stop there either Friday before I get to Detroit or Sunday on my way home. I am going to stop there on my way.
I don't know if they're open on Sunday. You might want to check that. I didn't look at the...
You can stand out in front and get your picture taken with the cake.
Oh, at least to go see it. I got you.
Yeah, I just want to see the cake anyway.
Well, I'll probably stop in and on my way down at least buy something. Not that I need the tickets because I'll be at the game, but I'll at least support them that way. So yesterday's spotlight, I didn't expect anything from it at all. I just, sent the video to the company just to let them know, hey, I did this. I hope you're not mad, right? And they were super excited about it. So we're going to visit them on Saturday. We're going to go in and try this Honolulu Blue Pizza and get to meet these wonderful people over there. So if you guys have a local company that you like to spotlight, it's free. These aren't collaborators, right? These aren't people that are paying us for doing stuff. Just doing it totally out of the goodness of our heart, just to highlight and spotlight some of the hardworking Americans in this country. So next up, we've got NFL news. We'll start off the day with that. And this one, I guess, is it a shocker? Probably not. Deontay Johnson was just cut. And this is, after his third team this season, he's had a trade from the Ravens, to the Ravens from the Panthers that just didn't work out. There was constant drama in Baltimore. He was suspended for conduct detrimental to the team for refusing to enter a game. And then Johnson was supposedly off to a good start in Texas, with the Texans. Now, this is a quote from their head coach where he says, with Deontay, I was really, I was really impressed with last week of practice. D'Amico Ryans was talking about this yesterday, and he says, I thought that he picked up on the things that we were asking him to do. I thought that he had some really nice catches, really nice plays throughout practice, and he got in the game. We were able to get him a little involved in the game as well. I thought that he handled himself really well. We will start to continue to feed him more to see how he can help us. So this is prior to the Chargers game, right?
Yep.
And now he's cut. And now he's released because I guess after the game, allegedly anyway, after the game, he was upset. Like, he was visibly upset. Players are trying to calm him down. He's had this issue of if he doesn't get a lot of targets, he kind of gets pissed off about it. And I don't get it. Like, you're on a new team. You kind of got to earn your stripes, dude. Like, you're not just going to come in and get all the targets or be a big part of the plan. I mean, the Texans have their playmakers. They have the guys that they trust. You need to find a way to fit in first. That's like, I don't know. That's like me going to Dan Patrick's show and saying, hey, I just want the mic all day. You can just sit over there. That ain't going to happen. I might get 15 seconds. You know what I mean? Maybe 15 seconds of fame. So what do you think about this move here, Deontay Johnson?
It's just another, what was his name? Keyshawn Johnson or whatever, the give me the damn ball guy. Remember back in the 90s, the receiver for the Jets? Give me the damn ball. Give me the damn ball. That's what it sounds like to me. He just sounds like a diva wide receiver that will flame out in under a season. Talented, but see you later. You have to have grit. You have to have
Selfless. You got to be selfless in this league now.
Yeah. You have to be able to fit in.
Exactly. So next up, let's talk about these confidence rankings put out by the NFL.com, and confidence rankings by, let's see, who published this? There's a handful of people that published this, but Dan Parr, Ali Banpuri, Brooke Sarasimo, and a few others. So 4 months ago, all 32 NFL franchises could really dream up, this ultimate football dream, right? Hoisting this Lombardi trophy. And now we've got 8 games left. That's it, or 8 teams left. Sorry, eight teams left. How do they stack up now that we're here? I would love to go back and look at where everybody had these teams in the beginning of the season and where they had them now. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think that a lot of people had the Lions where they are. There was a few people that did. Obviously, we did. But I don't think a lot of people had the Lions making it this far. I mean, the over-under, I think, was, 10.5 or 9.5?
Yeah, 10.5.
Yeah, wins from the very jump, and that definitely wouldn't have been enough. So, taking into everything that's happened this season, they put this together to kind of lay out the confidence rank, right? This isn't a power rank. This is a confidence rank on where these teams would finish. So, we'll start off with number 8, and that is the team we were just talking about, your Houston Texans. So, Houston has entered the 2024 campaign as a buzzworthy contender with a wonder-kind quarterback, but C.J. Stroud and the Texans took a step back in the regular season, specifically on the offensive side of the football. Now, DeMeco Ryans' crew, I mean, they won its second consecutive division title at 10-7, but the AFC South really didn't feature another team with a winning record. I mean, there was nobody good in that division, right? So this kind of felt like, you got it because you got a few extra wins, but did you really deserve it? Did you really do anything? Have you shown us that you're a powerhouse? No, I don't think so. Not this year. Now, obviously, it was evidenced by their point differential of 0. There was nothing that separated them from any other team in the NFL that they played this season, and it led many to believe that it would be a one and done in the playoffs. I picked them to win last week, and they won, and I expected them to win. I think that there's more to this team than there's not. But they have them as the 8th best team right now headed into the divisional round. Eric, do you agree or disagree with them being at 8?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I do think that between them and Washington, that's the weakest teams that are left in the playoffs this week.
So in the chat, in the comments below or whatever after the show, let us know where you have your confidence ranks for the last 8 teams that are in this race, which you've got Texans, you've got the Commanders, you've got the Lions, you've got the Rams, you've got Eagles, the Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs. Where do all these teams stack up headed into this last weekend the last weekend before the NFC Championship, I should say. So next up, number 7. Now I guess I can't really read it and then try to hide who it is. But anyway, here we go. Total confidence score for this team is 10 points. Total confidence score for the Texans was 5 points. You get it out of a possible 40 points. I apologize. I didn't tell you how this game works. There's a possible 40 points that can be put together for each team. So Texans got 5 points. Their Super Bowl odds are plus 5,500. Up next is the Washington Commanders, and they have 10 points. Their Super Bowl odds are plus 2,800. Here we go. So we nearly added a section to last week's playoff prediction overview that labeled the Commanders and the Bucs as the biggest trap game in round 1. But we convinced ourselves that Jaden Daniels, the rookie year late game magic, Jaden Daniels' rookie year late game magic would eventually have to run out, and it didn't. Into the pitfall it went, right? No, it didn't. So, and yet here we are again, siding against Washington in the midst of a historic turnaround for this franchise. Now, for the franchise to finish its fairy tale season with the Lombardi Trophy, it will have to win back-to-back road games, including at Detroit this weekend, and take down one of the AFC's big 3, barring an even more improbable run by Houston. A magical ending? Probably, just unlikely this weekend. So, what do you think about the Commanders being at 7?
Yep, perfect spot for them. I kind of think they should be at 8, though. The Detroit Lions are the biggest point spread of the entire weekend over the Commanders at 9.5 points. It started out at 8.5. It's up to 9.5. And I'm assuming by game time, there's going to be so much money laid on Detroit to win this game that it's probably going to be a 10-point game.
I'm just gonna say it, and trust me, I love my Lions. I'm just gonna say it. Something smells off. The largest point differential ever in the playoffs. Something seems off. So imagine everybody puts all this money on the Lions.
And Vegas wins.
Imagine. They've got to make up. So who was it? Was it FanDuel that lost, what, $70 million or something like that last weekend?
Yep.
Was it FanDuel?
Oh, yeah, it was FanDuel. They lost $74 million.
Yeah. So I think that they're probably trying to make some of that up, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
So I'd just be careful, people. I would be careful. Something doesn't smell right. So anyway, Los Angeles Rams at number 6. I don't know if I agree with this one, especially after watching this last game. They received a total of 15 points out of 40. Their Super Bowl odds are plus 2,000. Now, the Rams didn't climb above 500 until December of this season. They kind of had a really tough season, but we saw it last year. Matthew Stafford leading this team back the last, third of the season, winning a bunch of games, putting them into the postseason. Did it again this year. Now, with the victory that they had 44 to 42 over the Bills this season, who would have thought, right? Who would have thought that the Rams would have taken down the Bills? I didn't. I wouldn't have thought. So I guess the question is, this 5-game win streak for Matthew Stafford that rode them into the playoffs this season, they've gathered a lot of momentum heading into the postseason, of course, right? They trounced the Vikings on Monday night. Do they deserve to be at number 6? And now they're headed up to take on the Eagles, which I think the Eagles had a very poor game. They did not look like the Eagles of the regular season. Where do you think that they belong? Do you think that they should be at 6, or do you have a different idea?
Well, if you were going to swap them with anyone, it would be probably with the Eagles. But the Eagles are favored this weekend. So I think the Rams are in the spot they're supposed to be. If water finds its level and all things are equal, then this weekend the Eagles will beat the Los Angeles Rams this weekend. So I would have the Rams at 6. I agree with this so far.
Okay. I mean, I would say that I would love to put them ahead of the Eagles. And I think I'm going to. So I would swap them. I would put them at 5, and that's where the Eagles are. So the Eagles got a total confidence score of 23. And their Super Bowl odds, they jumped from the Rams being plus 2,000 to the Eagles at plus 400. That's a huge jump. Now, Eagles being in 5th place currently, according to NFL.com, I would have the Rams in 5th place. I think the Rams are going to take down the Eagles this weekend. At least that's what I feel right now. Philadelphia's offense features, all-world playmakers, right? Saquon Barkley, who's been, one of the best in football this season, running the football. They have a really good defense that started with, the pick of Jalen Carter last season. I don't know the health of Darius Slay. I don't know if he came back in the game or not, but they're clearly going to need somebody to step up in the cornerback room. And if Darius Slay is still there, the guy has just been playing really good ball ever since he left the Lions. They've had an early bye week. So back in week 5 is when the Eagles had their bye week. Lions had their first bye week. We earned a second bye week by getting the number 1 seed. And I think that's going to be the downfall of the Eagles. I think they've been running, too long, too hard. And, even though they rested, some players in the last week, I think that they're going to run up against it, against the Rams, who are playing hot right now. Now, Fangio's unit on the defensive side of the football, they performed at an elite level. They just allowed 14.6 points and 255 yards per game in the last 14 games. That's where they've been playing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Sunday's 22-10 win over the Green Bay Packers, Philly did lose a linebacker, though, Nakobe Dean. He's out for the season. That really hurts. Obviously, that's one of the bigger playmakers for the Eagles. Could it spell to be too much? Maybe. But the Eagles still have some potent playmakers on the defensive side of the football. They have Zach Bond, Jalen Carter, who I mentioned earlier, Quinnen Mitchell, rookie, who's played exceptional this season, and Cooper Dean, one of the hardest hitting safeties in the league. But does defense truly win championships anymore? Does it? It hasn't. It hasn't in more than a decade. More than 10 championships, it's been offensive side of the football. So that's my biggest question. Can the Eagles win on defense alone? I would say the answer is no, but I think I would put them behind the Rams at number 6, but the Eagles at number 5. Where do you think they belong?
I'm right there. So far, this has been pretty spot on. The only ones I might have flip-flopped would have been the Commanders and the Texans at 7 and 8, but I think 6 and 5 are just fine. So let's get into that top 4.
Yeah, so Ed O'Neill had a question wondering who I'd rather want to see the Lions go up against, the Rams or the Eagles, and I've been pretty confident in my answer here that I don't want to see the Rams. I really don't. I think that their defense is playing way better than what the Eagles' defense is playing right now, and that's a scary defense. They're fast, extremely fast. So when you have speed on the offensive side of the football that the Lions have, and you match it up against speed, which the Rams have on the defensive side of the football, I think it poses a bigger threat to the Lions offense. But number 4, the Buffalo Bills. Total confidence score 25. Super Bowl odds at plus 550. So I found that kind of odd that the Eagles have a better odds than the Bills, probably because they're in different conferences. But are we sleeping on the Bills? Maybe. They have to win at home, where they haven't lost since last January, mind you. And then, barring a massive upset by Houston, go on the road to defeat the Chiefs, a team that they've beat by 9 points earlier this season to get to the Super Bowl. That is definitely doable for the Bills. I think that the Bills have one of the better shots to make it to the Super Bowl out of any team that is left on the board. And as far as the level of difficulty goes, it doesn't get much tougher than having to get past Lamar Jackson, who apparently is the MVP frontrunner, which I don't agree with. Can it happen? Can they go on the road and take down, the juggernauts of the Ravens, the Chiefs? We'll see. Bills at 4. What do you think?
I don't know, because the Buffalo Bills play the Ravens this weekend. And to me, that is the game of the weekend as far as what two teams are basically equal. I don't see many weaknesses with either team, maybe with their defenses a little bit, but man, how are you going to stop Josh Allen? How are you going to stop Derrick Henry? That game is going to be a lot of fun to watch, and they're just going to beat each other up, I have a feeling. These two teams, whoever gets out of this game with a win is going to be the team that is probably pretty darn beat up going to the NFC Championship game. This is going to be one hard-fought game. And with the way the Buffalo Bills played us, if they play the same way and this same style for Josh Allen that has worked all year, nobody has figured it out yet. If they can't keep Josh Allen contained, it's going to be a long day for the Ravens. So as of right now, I think number 4 is the perfect spot for the Buffalo Bills.
So the thing I'm going to say about the Ravens defense is, they go up against one of the best, mobile quarterbacks, RPO quarterbacks in the league, which is Lamar Jackson. So if there is any defense out there that is more prepared, it's the Ravens. Yeah. I love this, that these two teams are going up against each other, because it's like, juggernaut versus juggernaut, right? You're talking about two of the best to run the RPO game, which is tough to defend for any team. And one of them is going to knock each other out. So I love it. I think it's perfect. It shapes up nicely for the Lions. And the next team just has to get a little bit lucky in the NFC Championship game, the AFC Championship game. And that helps the Lions again. So the Bills at 4, I get it. I think it's okay, but I'm going to jump them over the Ravens. The Ravens are at number 3 right now. Total confidence score of 33. Super Bowl odds of plus 475. Look, the Ravens have been killing everybody this season. They've had an extremely good season, but they had a bye week in week 14. So this team is still fairly rested, right? They're still, rested enough to where walking into the playoffs just, 5-6 weeks later. They haven't suffered a bunch of injuries. They are probably one of the most complete and versatile offenses in the league next to the Lions. And then they also have a defense that seems to kind of get better every week. Can they contend, with the Bills this weekend? I don't think so. I think that Josh Allen's going to finally do it and take out the Ravens and put himself into a position to get into a Super Bowl. I have the Bills at number 3. I have the Ravens at number 4. So where do you think? You obviously think the Ravens belong at number 3 then, or are you going to jump them over the Chiefs?
Can they just both be 2.5?
Right, or 3.5 or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know who's going to win this game. Seriously, this is going to be a slobber knocker. This is the game that, excuse me, I'm going to have the most interest in watching this weekend other than my Lions game. This is the game that it's going to just be a good football game.
Yeah.
The two best offenses, two best quarterbacks in the AFC. It doesn't get any better than this.
No, it really doesn't. It's really shaping up nice. So we're at 63 likes. If you guys can get that above 75, just jump out real quick. Smash the like button. We'll get the ads turned off. It's going on 8:30. Got to hit it so we can get these ads turned off for the second hour and a half or hour. I promise you, we always turn them off. We just got to get the likes up. So last 2 teams here. Take a guess. Now, you already know because you've got this in front of you. But if you weren't looking at this, if you didn't know this existed, where would you have put the Kansas City Chiefs and the Lions?
Now, not being able to see this, it may have surprised me to see exactly who's who. But if you go to DraftKings or any of the sports books and you look who is favored to win the Super Bowl, the Lions are favored to win the Super Bowl on every sports book. Now,
that's crazy.
I don't know if that's because so many people like me, like myself, back in February, decided to take $100 and throw it on the Lions to win the Super Bowl. Did I do that? Heck yeah, I did that. So I don't know if they're hedging their bets. I don't know if they're trying to get more people to bet on the Lions to win the Super Bowl. So that way, if they get to a Super Bowl and lose a Super Bowl, they make all that money. Because like I was saying earlier, the draft FanDuel lost $74 million on futures bets, people betting on the Lions last year, and they've got to make it up somewhere. So this might be how they're trying to make it up, overinflating one team, getting a bunch of people to bet on them, and then if they don't come in, then you know who wins that money? Vegas. So I would have been surprised to see Lions at number 1 and the Chiefs at number 2. But you got to remember, the Lions had a point differential of 222 points. They were blowing teams out. The Kansas City Chiefs have not scored 30 or more points the entire season. They did not blow anyone out. Their point differential is like 50 points. So I know the Chiefs are playing a first place schedule, but so are the Lions. Now the Lions play mostly NFC teams. Chiefs play mostly AFC teams. AFC has recently anyway been a little historically better than the NFC. So maybe they've had to play some tougher games. They've had the target on their back a little longer than the Lions have since they've won 2 Super Bowls in a row. So every team, every weekend, it is their Super Bowl to play the Kansas City Chiefs every week. And that is a for sure thing. So when the Lions played the Chiefs last year for the first game of the year, that pretty much was our Super Bowl last year. Playing the Chiefs in game 1 was huge for us to come out and play and win that game. So to see Kansas City at number 2, it's very surprising right now. And it's very enlightening, and it's very nice to see as a Lions fan.
So a couple of things here. So the Bills and the Ravens are both even in point differential. They're at plus 157 for both teams. So very evenly matched game this weekend as far as offensive side of the football. And when you look at, I've been saying for a while now that offense wins championships, and it's true. I mean, the stats back it up. If you look at all the Super Bowl winners that we've talked about numerous times on this show, and we've shown you guys the graph and the stats and all that I didn't put together. Somebody else put it all together. It shows you that the last time a defense won a Super Bowl was like more than a decade ago. And before that was like almost another decade before that. It's been almost 20 years of offenses winning the Super Bowl. And, well, actually last year was the first year that the Chiefs changed that narrative because their defense was better than their offense. And I would say that their defense is probably better than their offense again this season. Yes. But when you look at all of the teams that are left, in this, the Bills plus 157 point differential, the Ravens plus 157 point differential. I wouldn't say that either of those two teams have, in a crazy good defense. I mean, a good defense, yes, but I wouldn't say that they're crazy good. And we could talk about, defensive stats another day. When you look at the Kansas City Chiefs plus 59, I think to your point, I don't think that they're going to make it. And I've been saying that they weren't even going to make the playoffs this year. I don't think they're definitely going to make the Super Bowl. They've had a ton of help from the refs this year. I think that luck's going to run out. The Eagles, plus 160. So there's three teams that have a plus 150 point differential that are in the final 8. And then you have the Detroit Lions at plus 222. So to think that we have the best opportunity, we do. And that's simply based on our numbers. The Rams, kind of the frauds left in this, even though that they've got a really good defense right now. They're the only team where I would say that their defense is outperforming their offense. They're minus 19 in point differential. So that clearly tells you that their defense has been playing much better than their offense. However, you could flip that around and say, well, the point differential is so large for the other, 3 or 4 teams because the defense is giving the offense an opportunity. But that's in a microcosm of itself. You'd really have to go in and extrapolate all of the defensive statistics and what they did for turnovers versus sacks. Yeah, we're going to do some of that today. So anyway, the last two teams, I was very surprised to see that the Lions are ranked number 1 at plus 275 Super Bowl odds, 35 total confidence points, and the Chiefs just 1 point less at 34. I agree with it. I can't not put the Lions at number 1 because I'm a fan, but you put the bias aside, I really don't see another team right now that is better than the Detroit Lions, that is ill-equipped like the Lions are, that has the offense that the Lions do. And, oh, by the way, we're getting somebody back this week that will help that offense if he's installed into the game. And some other players, when we get into the injury report here in just a second, are back too. So the confidence is high, and it should be. Prisco's picks, I'm just going to run through this real quick, because I need to get into all these other segments. So Prisco's picks, he's got Houston versus Kansas City, or Houston at Kansas City. And obviously Kansas City is a minus 8.5. Minus 8.5. Hold on here. Where is it at? Okay. Chiefs are minus 8.5. So the Chiefs have been resting for 3 weeks, which they needed, right? But will that rest cause rust? I think that is a great statement. Will all that rest cause rust? And I think it could. Now, they don't think that it's a problem. Prisco doesn't think it's a problem, but I think it is a problem. Now, will the Texans be able to take down the Chiefs? Depends on what that defense does. I don't think the offense is good enough to beat the Chiefs, but I think the defense is going to have to put that offense on their back, right, for the Houston Texans to have an opportunity. At the end of the day, Prisco has the Chiefs winning 30-21. Commanders and Lions. Lions are plus 9.5. Plus 9.5. Or minus 9.5, sorry. This should be obviously a high-scoring game, you would think. That's if the Lions cannot slow down the RPO of Jaden Daniels, which we're going to talk about here in just a second. Now, this will be a high-flying affair, I think, for the Lions, but I'm not so sure that it's going to be for the Commanders. Now, I've been talking all week about what they can do. That's usually the first half of the week, right? We gotta put all the information out about the other team, and when we get to Thursday and Friday, we're going to tell you who's going to win this game. Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn will obviously have to send a lot of looks at Jaden Daniels' way to make sure that we can keep him uncomfortable. Prisco actually picked the Lions 34-31 over the Commanders. I couldn't believe it. Rams and Eagles. So Eagles are -6. He's got the Eagles 23-20 over the Rams. And then you've got the Ravens and the Bills. Bills are a +1, so very, very evenly matched game. He has the Bills winning 31-30. Now, I just looked at this for the first time. I saw it. I saved it. Just opened it for the first time. And I'd have to say the fact that he picked the Bills, I agree. The fact that he picked the Eagles, I don't agree. I think it's going to be the Rams. Commanders and Lions, obviously I agree with that. And then Chiefs and Texans, I probably agree with that. So out of all these teams, in your NFC and AFC championship, it's going to be the Chiefs and the Bills, and it's going to be the Lions and the Rams is what I'm thinking right now. What do you think, Eric?
I think it's going to be Lions, Eagles myself.
And on the other side,
I'm thinking Bills and Chiefs. I don't think the Texans Chiefs is a trap game. I don't think that the Chiefs just have too much experience when it comes to the playoffs. I don't see any which way, form, shape, anything that the Chiefs do not make the Super Bowl.
All right.
I don't care who they play.
Yeah, they'll probably get some help from the old Zebras this week.
Oh, yes.
So let's do a quick shout out in the chat this morning. I see we got J-Rod 1-6 in the house. We've got Mark Baylor, Southwest Lion 2-6. Mark Van Coffnit. What are you coughing? Coffnit.
He's coughing.
Mike P. We got Mike P. back in the house today. Moonscar Blade. Trace, of course, doing her wonderful abilities here on managing and moderating. As always, appreciate you, Trace. Brandy Coffee's in the house. RP. Jason. Let's see. Who else we got in here? Peter Van Larhoven. A lot of people in the chat. Gary Van Gorder. I don't know that I've seen that name before, so good morning to you. Glad you're listening today, and appreciate you being part of the channel. Again, if you guys haven't subscribed yet, please do that today if you could. Get us to 8250. Let me check. Let's see if we're there, so we can give a helmet away today. And anybody else in the chat, obviously, I don't miss you on purpose. Man, we're just a few away. Just a few more. And we'll get to 8250, and then we're going to give away another mini helmet today signed by Panay Sewell or Chris Spielman. I guess it's whatever one I pull out of the box. So next up, let's get into Myles Garrett. Now, we've heard a lot of I don't know, how do I put it? It's almost like bees buzzing in your ear. When you keep hearing garbage, just we need this person, we need that person, we need to spend all this money, and it's just not the Lions way anymore, right? It's not the Matt Millen era anymore. It's not, the Patricia and Quinn era anymore. The Lions aren't just going to go out and spend a boatload of money on bringing in free agents. Doesn't mean that they won't ever bring in one here or there. I mean, they spent a good amount of money on Carlton Davis. They spent a good amount of money on DJ Reader, not, bank breaking by any means. They got really good deals, especially on Davenport. They got a good deal on that guy too. But 15, 18 mil a year. I think that's kind of the cap for Brad Holmes. Like, he wants to find these good deals on guys that, maybe aren't as well recognized, that play the game the way that they want them to play the game. I think that means more than anything to Brad Holmes than this big shiny name that he can just put up on a shelf and say, hey, look at this guy. Look what I got in Detroit. We don't need that, right? We don't need all the guys. And I guess here's my gripe with, some of these big name free agents that don't come to Detroit, or, the big name players that don't come to Detroit or didn't, right? Remember, they didn't. They never did. They all shit on Detroit. They all said that Detroit was a wasteland. Nobody wants to come to Detroit. That's all we kept hearing. Why would we want them now? Why would we want to bring those guys in now? Just because we're good? It's now okay to bring these guys in? I don't think so. Look, if you weren't on the train before, if you didn't believe in Detroit before, and you weren't willing to come in 2021 to help us rebuild, I don't think that there's room for you now. That's my personal take. I think that Brad Holmes clearly has shown us over the last 4 seasons that even when this team made it kind of to the, edge of the top of the mountaintop, if you will, he still didn't go out and sign all these big names. And I think that that's for good reason. 1, he's extremely smart with the finances. 2, he doesn't want to F them picks. And 3, he definitely trusts himself in the draft. And I think he's proven to us. I was going to do an episode on this. Maybe I'll do it today. I'll do a video on how many All-Pros and Pro Bowls did Brad Holmes draft. It's insane when you look at it, how many he's drafted in the last 4 seasons. So Myles Garrett. Now, I'm not saying anything negative about Myles Garrett. This whole narrative that we're going to bring in these high-priced free agents like Khalil Mack next year, I've seen that about 50 times from the same individuals already. It just gets old. And so is Khalil Mack. He's old, right? And so is Myles Garrett. He's getting up there, right? He's had a hell of a career. He's definitely a Hall of Famer. But prior to the Week 15 loss to the Cincinnati Bengals, Garrett spoke about wanting to end his career in Cleveland and being just as adamant that he wasn't on board with a lengthy franchise restructure or rebuild. Okay. So there was a lot of chatter, people picked up on that and said, well, maybe now he's going to look elsewhere and he's going to end up in Detroit, and Detroit's going to spend all this money on him. Yeah, doubtful. Now he's suffered through the worst of the Browns, right? The doo-doo Browns have been bad, just like the Lions are bad. Garrett's been there. He's looking to play in some important games, right? He wants to be in the playoffs. He wants to be in a Super Bowl. Of course he does. And I'm sure he's going to get his chance. Is that going to be this next season? I doubt it. I'm sure he's still going to be in Cleveland. And part of that is because of the conversation between him and Andrew Berry, the GM of the Browns, said this. And this was in Tuesday's episode of Hard Knocks. He said, I've talked to the general manager, right? How are we going to make the most of all the talent that is here? We are closer than some may think we are. That's what came out of that. And the conversation between these guys basically said this. Garrett doesn't want to be here for a rebuild, but somehow Barry sold Garrett that they're not really rebuilding. They have a lot of tools. They have some really good players on both sides of the football. They just need to get a few more players in. And they're fairly attractive when you look at, who they have, but they're not attractive because of the name. But at the end of the day, Myles Garrett's staying in Cleveland. At least as of right now, he's staying in Cleveland. And, Barry said that they share in the frustration of Myles Garrett. Obviously, he doesn't want to continue to go through what they've been going through. But now I think we need to look at the other side of this with Deshaun Watson. Somehow Deshaun Watson ends up with a torn Achilles or whatever, ruptured Achilles, while he's off rehabbing. It's kind of interesting that they had, 43 of the $44 million covered by insurance on his injury. So now they don't have to spend that money, and it's going to end up back in their cap in 2026, I think. It's pretty crazy. Just so happened to rupture his Achilles at home. And oh, by the way, we have all of that insured. Kind of weird. So Deshaun Watson's out of the picture. He will never play another down in Cleveland. He's done. He's probably never going to play another down in the NFL, I hope. He never should have. Anyway. So now that Deshaun Watson's out of the picture, I think that now you have a more clear path of what the Browns could be able to do. If Sam Darnold's out of Minnesota, which is likely, well, he could be a bridge to Cleveland in year 1. If Danny Dimes doesn't stay in Minnesota, he could be a bridge to Cleveland in year 1. There's options, I guess is what I'm saying. There's a lot of options. And of course, they have some, really good picks in this year's draft. So they have the number 2 overall. More than likely, they're bringing in a quarterback. Could be Shedeur Sanders, but I don't think Deion's going to let that happen. Could be Hunter. My goodness, could you imagine having a two-way player? Look, they're close, and they've got all these picks. So at the end of the day, Myles Garrett's not coming to Detroit. Khalil Mack's not coming to Detroit. Joey Bosa's not coming to Detroit. TJ Watt's not coming to Detroit. We don't need them anyway. We just don't. And I'm going to explain to you why when we get into turnovers and sacks here in just a little bit. So what do you think about Myles Garrett?
I think he's kind of stuck. You know, he doesn't have too many options. And one thing fans need to realize when they're talking about a rebuild to me is when you gut your entire staff from your GM to your coach to your coordinators and you start over again. You take all your high calorie sap guys, you flush them, you trade them, you do whatever, you start from scratch. So people that are saying like the Vikings were in a rebuild, the Vikings were not a rebuild. They were in a retool. They did not gut their staff. They did not trade away all of their high priced guys. They didn't cut a bunch of people. So to me, the Browns are in a retool. They're not in a rebuild. They're not bringing in an entire new coaching staff, new GM, new everything. And so when you look at someone like Matt Stafford, he didn't want to go through a rebuild. And that's what we did here in Detroit. Took us 4 years.
Go through like his fourth rebuild.
Yeah. So it's understandable. I mean, you know, the guy just had enough. He wanted out. Didn't want to go through it again.
To your point, I mean, there's a definite distinction between rebuild, retooling, right? I mean, if you look at what the Lions did in 21, that was a complete rebuild. And I mean, a true rebuild. Everything went down to, I've said it before, the mud, not just the studs, right? So usually when teams retool, yeah, they're probably going to change, you know, head coach. They keep the same GM. They get rid of the head coach. They bring in that new head coach's players with that GM. They get aligned and they kind of retool, reset the chessboard for another game. And then they find out in 2 to 3 seasons, yeah, that didn't work. So then they're going to kind of do a quasi gut job and they're going to get rid of the GM and the quarterback, or the GM and the coach. They still might keep the quarterback. So they're still kind of retooling, but now they're going to go a little bit deeper down to the insulation barrier, and it didn't work. When you truly rebuild and not just retool, you get to where the Lions are right today in 4 seasons if you do it the right way. And for a lot of teams, and the NFL as a whole has never been a patient league.
Nope.
Ever. Because players, I mean, they only last like 3 seasons on average. So, of course, the NFL's never really been patient because players, well, they don't have the patience to wait. A lot of these guys are washed out within a few seasons. So when you draft some guys and you invest that money, they want to get great right now. And I think that they're overseeing one important step. You never really built the foundation. If you would have just waited 1 more year, given yourself 1 more year of patience, you probably could have been a much different ball team. And I think that they always kind of skip over that dollar to pick up a nickel. You know what I mean? It's like they're skipping over the most important step, and they're screwing themselves on the back end. And they just lost 95 cents, and now they've got it. They're losing it all because all that money they just spent for 3 years is gone. So you can't just rebuild, man. You can't just retool. Sometimes it does take a rebuild, and that's what we're going to get into right now as Lions news. But before we do that, I want to give you guys a gift today, and that is from Dutch Pet. So if you guys don't know what Dutch Pet is, this is a company that I'm super excited to be partnering with. Incredible what they've done. They've transformed and transcended what vet care is today, which means from the comfort of your own home, whether you're on vacation or at home, you can call Dutch Pet any time of day. You've got full access 24 hours a day to licensed vets. You get unlimited visits, unlimited follow-ups for your pets. All of your pets are covered in your home. You get guaranteed low prescription prices. I mean, simple stuff like allergy medications, eye drops, OD cleanse for the dog's ears, whatever. They have it all. Shipped to your home within 2 days. Annual savings per pet, $650 a year. So $50 off to you guys today. Use the link in the description. $82, a whole year's worth of vet follow-ups and visits. I know you know how much it costs to take care of your pet. 1 doctor visit, 1 vet visit averages $150 in America. Just 1 vet visit. You're going to get at least 2 visits just for the cost of an annual subscription. Get it today. Dutch Pet, amazing partner. Appreciate what they're doing for us in the channel. Awesome. So, Lions news. Coaching update on Ben Johnson.
Yep.
I saw this hit last night. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not crazy. I know a lot of people thought I was crazy. They thought that there is no way that Ben Johnson is going to go to the Raiders. There's just no way. Why would he go there? Well, I'm going to give you kind of three things that maybe, I'm going to do it off the cuff. I'm going to try to think of three things right now that maybe attract Ben to the Raiders more than not. Okay, so no quarterback, no problem. And what I mean by that is this allows Ben to buy time with this organization to say, look, you don't have a quarterback. That's where we have to start. So that's going to give us at least 2 to 3 years of seasoning a rookie quarterback. We're going to need to bring somebody in to be a bridge. Maybe it's O'Connell sticks around. No quarterback, no problem. Okay, that gives Ben an argument, to the Raiders to say, look, I need at least 4 seasons. I want to get to my second contract, but I need 4 years to kind of rebuild this team. Not retool. We're going to rebuild this team. Now, that doesn't mean that the Raiders aren't going to be competitive because they still have Max Crosby and they still have some other players on the offensive side of the football. But I think that no quarterback is a big selling point to allow for patience. Next would be capital. They have a ton of money. The Raiders have a ton of capital right now also in the draft. So with those 3 points, I think is what Ben Johnson is highly attracted to the Raiders job. Now, yesterday, been a lot of things reported in recent days about Ben Johnson and now the Raiders. Now the Bears and Johnson, apparently, what was first reported was a good visit in Chicago, didn't go as planned. According to reports now, that interview process with the Chicago Bears really didn't hit it off for either Ben or the Bears. Again, allegedly and reported. There has been absolutely no momentum on the idea that Johnson is going to Chicago. So Dan Patrick came out yesterday on this dynamic about what's going on with Ben Johnson. Here's what he said. Quote, I was told last night that for Ben Johnson, the Raiders make more sense because he doesn't want to go against the Lions and Dan Campbell being in the same conference. Remember when I said that? I don't think that Ben would do that. I don't think the AG would want to do that. Whether that is true or not, I think also the allure of Tom Brady being a factor, and Tom Brady is making decisions with the Raiders. It feels like he is making the decisions with the Raiders, end quote. So according to Dan Patrick and others, the Raiders make the most sense, and that is the job that is more appealing to Ben Johnson. And you had an interesting topic here on another coach that might be going to the other place that we feel that Ben Johnson was a good fit. Who was that? And then give us your comments here on Ben to the Raiders.
Yeah. So all along, I've been thinking that Ben Johnson is going to go to the Jaguars. I've been saying it all season long. That's the job he wants. When that job comes open, it's basically his. And the fact that I thought he would take Mark Brunell with him to be his quarterback's coach. Mark Brunell's from there. He quarterbacked there. What a homecoming that would be, right? So I thought for sure it was going to be Ben Johnson to the Jags all along. Well, then I woke up and there's this report, and this is from John Shipley. And this report says former Jets head coach Robert Saleh has a legit shot at the Jaguars job. So they're saying that he may be the front runner for this job. There has been consistent momentum for candidates like Detroit Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson and Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator Liam Cohen. But what about a dark horse candidate in the form of former New York Jets head coach Robert Saleh? So I find it very interesting that he has come out of nowhere, basically, and maybe he takes that Jags job, and that just pushes good old Ben Johnson right over to the Raiders job, which I think is the most appealing. And I think it's the most appealing because of Brady, because Brady is now in the ear of the owner because he's a minority owner. And they're going to start doing stuff a little bit different. It's not just going to be the Mark Davis way anymore.
I can see all that happening. I don't know about Saleh in Jacksonville. I guess I really haven't spent a whole lot of time on that because I would think Jacksonville wants a offensive-minded coach because of Trevor Lawrence and what they have on the offense, and Sal is a defensive coordinator by trade. So I think that's the only issue for me, is that maybe Saleh doesn't quite fit the Jags because of the type of coach that he is. But who knows?
Yeah. It does say that he formerly coached with the Jags as well. So he's got some ties there already. They might know him a little bit.
Interesting, though. I mean, doesn't mean that he can't hire a really good offensive, minded coach to help him on that side of the football. You're only as good as your coaches in this league, right? I mean, if you don't have good coaches, who are you at the end of the day, I guess, is the biggest question. So next up, Lions got good news on the injury front. Injury report came out. Now everything's moving up a day because the Lions play on Saturday, so they don't play on Sunday, which means the initial injury reports come out on Tuesday. And then your final injury reports, I believe, are still going to be Friday, but it could be Thursday. Could be Thursday late afternoon that the final injury report comes out, and then you kind of treat Friday as a Saturday. So injury update for your Detroit Lions. I mean, I don't think it's a surprise. A lot of this stuff we have known about. But I'm going to start with Rakestraw. So he was on injured reserve. 21-day evaluation clock started, right? The Lions started Rakestraw's clock last week, Thursday. And that was during their final practice, right, of the bye week?
Yeah.
I believe. So he is expected to return to the active roster soon and provide the Lions with some, much needed backup here, right? Some depth on the in the secondary. I don't know if he makes it this week, though. It almost makes me wonder if they want to get through this game, win this game, and then Rakestraw is up. I don't know if they're going to want to kill a roster spot if Rakestraw is not a full go, or if they don't feel like he can help them in this game, whether on, special teams or, as that 7th or 6th DB that they bring into the game. So I'm not so confident that he'll be up this week, but he could be. And then next up is no practice. So Kevin Zeitler, he was injured in week 18. And with a hamstring injury, he's been one that has been a little bit more slow go. He was estimated to have missed practice on Tuesday. There's still a chance that he will play in the upcoming matchup versus the Commanders, but he's probably the one that is on the outs right now. Besides one other guy, he could play, but with Christian Mahogany's development this year, I don't know that I'm as concerned against the Commanders, especially in the run game, that Christian Mahogany can't do a great job. You put, Mahogany on the left, you put Graham Glasgow back on the right, which is his natural position. I think that helps the Lions, but Zeitler's been one of the best in the NFL this year. I don't want to see him out for any length of period of time. I hope that he can get into the game, but at the end of the day, if the Lions feel that they can win this game without Zeitler and give him an extra week to get into the NFC Championship game, probably a smart move. We'll be paying attention to that this week, see what happens. Did get some bad news, though, on Pat O'Connor. Now, Pat O'Connor's been instrumental in the way that he has played this season, both on special teams. I mean, he's been, him and Hogan Hatton have been great on special teams, but his ability as a defensive lineman this year has really been kind of shining through. I mean, with all of the injuries that the Lions faced, Pat O'Connor really stepped up this season, and it looks like he might not be able to make it back. So he might be headed to injured reserve for the rest of the season. Another defensive piece going to IR potential. So again, we'll keep our eyes and ears down on the ground for this one. The good news is this. David Montgomery returned to practice a while ago, right? He's been doing well. David Montgomery is anticipated to play this weekend. Not sure how many snaps he'll get. But like Dan Campbell said, there's a place for number 5 on this team. Number 5 is what we are, right? In so many words. I'm going to be super excited to see the second half of Sonic and Knuckles back on this roster, playing in this game this weekend. And Terry and Arnold. So a couple weeks ago when he was injured, I told y'all just to kind of cool it. Don't worry. It's just a contusion. He's going to be fine. Terrian, good to go. Full practice for both of these guys. Terry and Arnold's back in the game, back in the saddle. And this gives us an interesting dynamic, I think, that we're going to talk about a little bit today, or maybe tomorrow, is now that you have Terrian back and the way that Amik Robertson has been playing the last couple of weeks, last couple of games, since week 18, really, I guess. Now you could still put Amik on Terry McLaurin, and you could put Arnold on their second fiddle. And I think that's a great matchup. I think that's the best matchup, is to have the same thing that they did in week 18. Do it again. Put Amik on the number 1. Put Arnold on the number 2. Arnold has been a much better corner on the number 2. It almost looks like Arnold is up against another rookie all the time when he's gone up against the number 2. It fits him well. And I'm not saying that, anything negative about Arnold. I think that Arnold's going to really shine in year 2. So I'm kind of liking this dynamic now with Amik on the outside. So injury report, Eric, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's a couple questions in the chat about a couple of players. So I'm going to try to address them real quick. Wingo, out for the season. He cannot come back. He was put on season-ending IR, saying we're not getting Carlton Davis back, according to Dan Campbell. Could surprise us, but everything is pointing towards Carlton Davis not coming back. I don't think we're going to get anyone else back. This is it. Who we have is who we have, and I don't see anyone else coming back from IR. I really, really highly doubt seeing Hutch in the Super Bowl. Maybe he tries to make a comeback for the practices that week. If we make it there, we have to make it there first. So don't get all your hopes up on a bunch of people coming back. We have who we have, and that's what we got to go with.
Well, I haven't really been paying attention to all the clickbait that's been out there. I don't know if anyone's talking about players coming back.
Yeah, me neither.
To Eric's point, this is it. I mean, we've heard it now for weeks by Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
Aiden Hutchinson was a season-ending injury. Carlton Davis was a season-ending injury. Wingo's been out for weeks. And I know it's kind of hard to remember all these, right, to kind of keep them all in line. But this is it, guys. I mean, and ladies, this is who we have. And I think that's a great point by Eric. And you know what? I'm not scared. Lions have been playing great ball. AG has had a phenomenal plan every week that we've had massive injuries. And I think that we're going to be just fine.
Yeah, and Peter, I don't think we're going to bring anybody off the street. I think it's too late.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably put some depth guys back there, but again, I think we have enough. So I'll make sure that I'll be wearing my chain, my Sonic and Knuckles chain again this weekend. They're back. They're back in the saddle. I never took Knuckles off ever. He's always ridden with Sonic at every game. They're back in the saddle this weekend. I'm excited to see that happen. All right, so next up, we've got the RPO versus the Detroit Lions defense. Man, this is going to be an epic showdown, I think, with Jaden Daniels and his feet. It's nothing that we haven't seen before. Dan Campbell has made some great comments about, running quarterbacks and who hasn't, had some issues against running quarterbacks. So I'm going to highlight the RPO. I'm going to walk through, kind of a segment of education and kind of explain everything about the RPO to a degree. I'm going to give you a lot of information about the RPO and then the RPO against the 4-3 base defense, which is what the Lions have been running. That doesn't mean that we're not going to go back to the nickel like we did in week 18. And if you remember that defense that I called to run against the Vikings, they did. I was extremely surprised to see that the way that AG ran up against the Vikings, he had 2 linebackers in almost the entire game, 2 high safety. It was dropping 5 and 6 DBs into the game consistently throughout every quarter. And we still ran with 4 down linemen. So very interesting the way the AG attacked the Minnesota Vikings. Is it going to work again this week going up against the RPO? I don't know. We're going to find out right after this word from one of our sponsors.
Every day, thousands of people are discovering Uper Lights, Michigan's newest, funnest rock to go find on the shores of the Great Lakes. Don't go out with just any light. Try the Convoy C8 from uperlights.com. It's guaranteed for life, and you'll find all the ones everyone else misses. Quality UV lights that are perfect for Uper Lights with prices starting as low as $20. Please make sure to visit uperlights.com for all your UV flashlight needs with the best guarantees on the market. Just what you wanted and not what you didn't. The best quality, the best guarantees, and the best UV flashlights from uperlights.com.
Okay, the RPO. I got to look up one quick thing. Eric, do you have any filler for 2 minutes?
Yeah, Mike P was asking about Wingo, what his surgery was, but the only thing I can pull up is that he had surgery. It doesn't say what kind of surgery or what happened after the surgery. So, and this story was from November 30th, and there's been nothing else since. So I don't even know what his actual, I know it was a leg injury of some kind. I don't know if it was an ankle. I want to say it was an ankle.
So I want to say that he had PCL. I know it was knee.
Oh, it was the knee?
Okay. I think it was PCL. Maybe MCL. Either was the knee. I know that he had something done with his knee. That's all that I can remember.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Mike P, I can't find anything.
All right. So, RPO.
Yep.
RPO offense in the NFL. It's kind of been or becoming a staple, right? Michael Vick is the one that really started this thing, in my opinion, as far as this whole RPO game that and Michael Vick is one of the best to ever do it. Now, due to the ability to create conflict for defenses and maximize offensive efficiency, the RPO really began to kind of take hold in the NFL, because that's what it did. It created a ton of conflict in the game. So anyway, at its core, so the RPO, it's a play in which the offensive line executes a run block, but the quarterback has the option to hand the ball off or throw a quick pass based on the read option of a specific defender. Typically, it's the linebacker or the safety that you're keying in on to figure out where this RPO is going to go. That's what Jaden Daniels is looking at. That's what Jalen Hurts is looking at. That's what Mahomes is even looking at times when they run the RPO. So the key components of an RPO is this. You have a pre-snap read. The quarterback identifies the key defender. Who is it? He will also read after the snap. This is often, a linebacker lined up near the box or a safety that starts to creep down towards the line of the scrimmage. So which key defender is he keying in on? Is it the safety that's creeping? Is it the linebacker that's creeping down? Who is it? And then you have the post-read snap. So after the snap, the quarterback's eyes immediately go to that defender. Oftentimes you hear, 50 is the mic or whatever, right? Well, it's a little bit different in the RPO where the quarterback really isn't calling somebody out, and sometimes they do, but usually they're not calling somebody out because they want to identify that guy in secret. The quarterback just has that job to identify that one key defender, and then he has to make the decision. So it really doesn't help them to kind of call out who they're looking at, right? So after the snap, quarterback's eyes immediately go to the defender. Now, if this defender crashes down to defend the run, the quarterback kind of pulls the ball back and then throws a quick pass. It's either, to a receiver in space, or it could be a receiver behind, blockers. If the defender drops back into coverage, though, or hesitates, the quarterback usually hands the ball off for a run or follows through behind the running back with the ball in his hands, and he becomes the runner. Now, the blocking scheme. The offensive line will block as if it's running a run play, typically using a zone blocking scheme or a combination of a zone and a man isolation blocking scheme. And this helps sell the run and occupy the defensive line and the linebackers, because as we've seen in the past few weeks, I kept saying, man, Turner is just biting down on every pass pro, opportunity, or every opportunity that the offense can pull the ball back, fake the handoff. Turner was biting down, the defense was biting down, and we were getting lost on that defense and allowing everything to go to the outside. This is kind of the same situation. So during, this blocking scheme where they're trying to isolate or run a run play or mimic a run play, this really helps to kind of sell the run, and then you occupy the defense and the defensive line and the linebackers to kind of bite down. And that's where teams get into trouble. Now, the passing concept side of this, RPOs often utilize very simple, high percentage passing concepts such as slants, hitches, bubbles, quick outs. These routes are designed to be thrown quickly, obviously accurately, maximize the chance of a completion, and then they utilize those players in space. So imagine, the Lions have kind of done this to a degree, right? We throw that quick hitch or that bubble, to the right or to the left, and I can't stand this play. It never works for us. It is a pick six ball. It's not something that it's not something that I feel Jared Goff does well. I don't think he's twitchy enough. That's about the only knock I got on the guy. I don't think he's twitchy enough to get some of those plays off, way out to the boundary. I think they need to be closer, to the end of the line, like, where the tight end is. You put a guy in motion and then you try to hit him quick in stride, not put a guy out in, trips right and you try to get a block and then put the guy behind, the receivers and get the quick hitch in. I don't like that play, but that's what they do in the RPO. Now, the question is this: how does the RPO attack a 4-3 defense like the Lions run? Well, the 4-3 defense typically has 2 deep safeties and 3 linebackers all the time. And it can be very vulnerable to RPOs if it's not played with discipline, which is a word that I've been using all season long. I'd much rather see the Detroit Lions play disciplined football than attacking football. And what I mean by that is your edge rushers can't be selling out. They need to contain. And if we can contain some players, the quarterback, you have a better opportunity at shutting down the RPO. They'll still get yards on you. They're still going to be able to do something, but you're going to limit a lot of these explosive plays. So how does the RPO exploit a 4-3 defense? Well, number one, you have to create conflict for the linebackers. That is a word that I'll use often, conflict for the linebackers. You want to conflict them in their judgment. So RPOs put the linebacker in a bind. Thank God Anzalone is back. If they aggressively attack the line of scrimmage, which we have seen the Lions do, and we've heard it from Aaron Glenn all year, he wants these guys to attack the line of scrimmage. I've heard him say it in multiple pressers this year that that's how he runs his defense, to attack, attack, attack. They're trying to attack, all of these different variables of running lanes because you can't fill them all. They're just trying to make their best educated guess on which one, the play is going to. So if they aggressively attack the line of scrimmage to stop the run, then they open up the passing lanes directly behind them. And if they drop back into coverage, well, then they concede the run. How many times have we seen where the Lions are just getting eaten alive over the middle of the field? That is because of our linebacker play. And that is what I've been saying all year, that we really needed to shore up. And the only way that you can really do that and still stop the run is dropping into a nickel coverage, which is exactly what I wanted them to do against the Vikings to a degree. But I would rather have seen almost a dime look and get really fast with 3 safeties and 3 corners, limit your linebackers to 2, and then you cover those zones, right there. And it worked. But not every time you can do that, right? Sometimes you have to have bigger matchups. And the other way that the RPO really attacks this 4-3 is by creating space. Now, you force the linebackers to hesitate or make a quick decision. RPOs can create space for receivers in the short to intermediate pass game. Again, where the Lions have given up quite a bit of yards and some yak is the intermediate. This is especially effective against the 4-3 defenses that really rely on their linebackers to cover a lot of ground. And I would say the Lions do that. I think that they've heavily relied, especially when Alex and the other guys were in there, Malcolm, they were covering all of that area, right? That entire zone, that intermediate zone, they were flying Jack back and forth, sideline to sideline. And then our guys playing man or downfield. So you open up this giant hole. I don't think that Aaron Glenn's going to do that this weekend. I think that Aaron Glenn's going to do something a little different. So relying on linebackers to cover all this ground is kind of a problem, especially if you don't have savvy cover linebackers. And we really only have one, and that's Anzalone. We only have one that can really cover. Jack is getting there, but Jack, I don't think is a good coverage linebacker, and I'm sure everybody else would disagree with me, but when I watch his tape, I just feel like he's lacking a few things in coverage, but he's getting better, and I think he'll be better. Now, the last thing, you want to exploit matchups in the 4-3 defense. So RPOs can be designed to target specific matchups, such as the slot receiver against a linebacker, or the running back on a linebacker, So how many times have we seen in the past couple of weeks where these running backs are catching, 30, 40-yard bombs against the Bills downfield? So the Bills use an RPO system. And what the Bills did against us is exactly what we can't allow on Saturday night. It's exactly how they beat us. They beat us with matchups. They isolated a linebacker on the running back. And they're going to win that all the time because the running backs are extremely fast. As long as they can catch, well, you get them downfield, and then there's your completion. Same thing with tight ends. If you want to isolate a tight end on a linebacker, I would say that tight ends are probably going to win that matchup more often than not. But if you drop a safety down on the tight end, I think the safety is probably going to win that more often than not. So the next point is RPOs against different types of 4-3 schemes. So you have the base 3-4 or base 4-3, and in a base 4-3, which the Lions run quite often, is the Mike linebacker is the key defender that's read by the quarterback. So that's either going to be Jack or Alex this weekend, depending on who's the Mike. So if the linebacker flows towards the run, then the quarterback throws. If he drops into coverage, the quarterback hands off. It's that simple. It is such a simple schematic adjustment for these quarterbacks to make a quick decision. But it's not as simple on the defensive side of the football because you're taught to crash. You're taught to be aggressive. You're taught to go after the ball. But if you don't watch the ball come out and you've already bit down and you can't drop back fast enough, that ball is, quick release for a good quarterback is up and out. And then you've got the nickel, which again is the defense that I'm expecting Aaron Glenn to use more often this weekend. So the nickel defense will replace a linebacker with an extra defensive back. Typically it's a corner. I think it's going to be a safety this weekend. I think that we're going to have Iffy, Branch, and Kirby on the field more often. Now, this can make the defense a little bit more susceptible to the run, as there is usually one less run defender in the box, being a linebacker. However, it does improve the coverage against the RPO passes, and I think that there's one thing that we know about our defense that is better than all else. When Brad Holmes brought in, the safeties and the corners that he did, if you go look at their box scores and you look at their ratings against the run, our DB room is one of the best rooms against the run. And that has held true now for about 3 seasons. Yep, they sucked in coverage for a period of time. They give up some yards, but you put them against the run, these guys shut it down. Amik Robertson, Brian Branch, some of the best against the run. So in my opinion, the nickel gives us a better opportunity against the RPO. Because our guys do so well against the run, I think that is an advantage to the Lions. Now the dime, which is the other scheme out of the 4-3, which is going to bring in typically 6 defensive backs. So the dime defense adds even more defensive backs to the field, which, again, it theoretically weakens the run defense, but it improves pass coverage. So from that scheme or schematic plan, you would think, okay, we're going to give up some run yards against either Jaden Daniels or their running backs. Now, against the dime, RPOs may lean towards the run option, but again, I'm going to revert back to the nickel. Our guys are really good against the run. So I'm less worried if we're in the dime or the nickel against the RPO. And then you have the blitz. This is AG's bread and butter. This is all he does, is blitz. So blitzing is an extreme high risk against the RPO. High reward strategy if you're able to figure out what they're doing. But up against the RPO, you're blitzing, you're selling out. So if they're not handing the ball off, you're screwed. If he's not throwing the ball, you're screwed. Kind of screwed both ways, right? You've got to read it, and then you've got to react. But if you sell out and then someone just happens to come open in the middle of the field and Daniels hits him in stride, that could go to the house. Because now you're dependent on, the 2 or 3 guys in the back there in the secondary to pick up that player that just became free out of the backfield. So if the blitz is picked up, it can leave the defense very vulnerable to quick passes in the vacated areas, finding guys in space, which is what Jaden Daniels is going to want to do. However, a very well-timed blitz, a blitz with patience, I know that doesn't make sense, but it makes sense in my brain, can disrupt the timing of the RPO, and it can force a turnover pretty quickly. And that's why, to me, The turnovers are the most important factor in this game this weekend. They've been the most important factor all season, even against sacks. So how does sacks hurt you against an RPO? Well, if you're focusing on getting sacks, you're selling out. And if you're selling out and you're blitzing, you're going to get hurt, right? Jaden is going to take advantage of you. He is not a rookie. He's not playing like a rookie. Anyway, I should say that he is a rookie. He's not playing like a rookie. Going after and selling out the edge rushers is going to hurt us. And that's why I think, again, this is going to be a smart defensive plan of containment, patience, hold your zones, let Jaden make a mistake, make him be the rookie that he is and make a mistake. Now, lastly, not lastly, I got a little bit more. Defending against the RPO. So defending against the RPO, it requires a big discipline and communication from all 11 defenders. They have to be in a one-track mind. So here's some strategies. Key defender discipline. The key defender must be disciplined in their read and avoid overreacting, if you will, to the run or to the pass. They can't show their hand, right? Good poker face. That's what they have to have this weekend. They need to maintain their assignment. Again, smart, disciplined football. Force the quarterback to make a tough decision, which I just said a minute ago is a mistake. Linebacker play. Thank God, again, Anzalone is back. Linebackers need to be able to react quickly to what's happening on the field, diagnose the play, read accordingly, react accordingly, and then they need to be able to defend the run and the pass. Alex is going to be fine. I think Jack is going to be fine. If they only have those two guys on the field the majority of the time this weekend, I think we're okay. Secondary coverage. I think that the defensive backs need to be alert, obviously, for the quick passes. They have to be ready to make tackles in space. They have to be able to drop down and make the tackle in the run game. They also need to communicate effectively to avoid congestion and coverage bust. If they're congested, well, that turns into a natural pick play and someone's going to get open. If there's a coverage bust, well, I think you already know the answer. It's going to the house. Varying coverages, though. How can varying or mixing up your coverages help? Well, if you mix it up and you confuse the quarterback on what's coming next, I don't think I need to further explain that. You disguise what you're doing out of the 4-3 base, but really you're inside of a nickel formation that you've got a little bit of man, you got a little bit of zone called, and Jaden's got to have to figure it out. But on every play, you've got to do something different. On every play, you know, that key defender needs to be somebody different that he doesn't know is coming. So if let's say that Jaden points out, let's just say he does this. Let's say he points out the key defender and he points at Branch. And Branch is down, let's say on the left side. So you're right if you're behind the offensive line. Well, at that point, if he's in, which I would assume he is, well, now Iffy needs to become the key defender. So that has to just be a natural selection, an idea with these guys to say, hey, look, he just pointed at me, Iffy, it's your time. Right? And so Jane's not going to see this coming. That's how you have to defend it. Disguise the blitzes. That's probably the most important thing. Don't show your hand. Just do it. Understanding, you know, the intricacies to an RPO and how to attack it from all these different defensive schemes. I mean, that is the challenge, right? If all of these coaches, if everybody in the NFL had this stuff figured out, everything that I just told you is fact, right? I mean, that's how you do it, but it can't get done most of the time because it is extremely difficult to defend. So how do the Lions fare against mobile quarterbacks is what we're going to talk about next. Eric, that was a long segment for me. What do you think now after all of that?
Yeah, this RPO is going to be finicky, okay? Because this is more of a, I don't know, throwback to Michael Vick or a college type of thing. There's not, I don't know if there's all that much RPO in the pros. It's more of a college throwback kind of thing that teams.
Well, it started in college, yeah. It's made its way to the NFL now for several years, but yeah, there's a lot of RPO in the NFL now. I think every team uses it to a degree.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, but I think they run it exclusively though, basically for this new rookie, and he's doing well with it. I mean, I think the key to all of this for the Lions this weekend boils down to a couple things. We're going to have to run the ball and control the clock, and we have to get turnovers on this rookie, whether that's sacking him for a fumble, forcing a fumble, or getting an interception. That's what we need to do against this rookie.
Well, I know that the one thing that we really need is this.
Everyone wants to be a dog until you got to do some dog shit.
Alex Anzalone has got to do some dog shit. He's going to have to bring a big scoop this weekend, and he's going to have to fill a big bucket this weekend, because Alex is going to be the key to making this all work for this defense. He's going to have to be the one that has figured this out. At the end of the day, you guys hear me talk about spies, and someone has to have their chest to the quarterback. That's how I always taught my guys, kids actually, is someone has to have your chest. That was the easy way for me to explain, facing the quarterback, or, keeping your eyes on the quarterback, or spying on the quarterback is not necessarily a spy. It's just putting yourself in the right position to be able to see, read, react, and make a play. You need to see, read, react, make a play. It's that simple. But if your chest is not facing the quarterback, you can't see. And if you can't see, you can't read. And if you can't read, you can't react. And if you can't react, guess what? You're out of the damn play. So you've got to be able to see, read, react, make a play. That's what we have to do this weekend. Someone has to have their chest to Jaden all the time. And that'll be the key defender. So the Lions are going to have to key somebody or multiple guys this weekend. So the next question is, well, just how good or bad have the Lions been, or the rest of the top 10 teams that have made the playoffs this season against mobile quarterbacks? So the Ravens, the Vikings, the Broncos, the Bucks, the Lions, the Steelers, the Packers, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, and the Eagles. The only one out of that is the Dolphins that didn't make the playoffs. Okay, so this article here highlighted, thank you, Mike Payton, for doing this, because he did the work for me. So in here, he wanted to see just how the Lions have fared against running quarterbacks versus other team stats. Because the question was asked to Dan Campbell, well, you've had trouble with running quarterbacks, right? And Dan Campbell's response is exactly what I've been saying. Tell me a team that doesn't have trouble. Now, fortunately, the Lions have been one of the better teams this season at corralling the run game. And in the very beginning of the season, probably for the first 8-9 weeks, if a team got more than 50 yards, we were like, whoa, that's too much. And it's been slowly kind of creeping up every week. I think we had 100-yard game this year. And that was the first time in 2.5 seasons. It was a long time that we did not let up a 100-yard rusher. So the question is, how have the Lions fared, and how some of the other teams fared? Well, the Lions, as you would know, have allowed the most yards against running quarterbacks. So the Detroit Lions have allowed 1,672 total rushing yards in 2024. So if we do the math real quick, 1,672 divided by 17 is just under 100 yards a game. It's 98.4 yards per game. Now, out of that, the Lions, that was the fifth least in the league, obviously, right? So the Lions are the fifth best against the run. Of those 1,672 yards, 445 of them came from the quarterbacks running the football. So that's a little bit more than 26% of the rushing yards allowed this season against running quarterbacks. Now, how does that compare to the other top 10 teams? So you look at the Chiefs, right? They're slated as one of the best teams in the NFL. They're supposed to go to the Super Bowl this year, or the Eagles with their incredible defense. Well, the Chiefs allowed 427 yards. So just, 18 yards less. The Eagles allowed 352. So just about 110 yards less over an entire season. That doesn't amount to much. You're talking 110 yards over 17 games. That's only 6.5 yards more per game. The Bucks allowed 351. Well, they're out. The Broncos allowed 290. They're out. The Packers allowed 266. They're out. The Ravens, 233. One of the best teams against the run because, they go up against it every day with Lamar Jackson. They know how to defend it. The Steelers, 226. They're out. The Dolphins, 178. Didn't make it. And the Vikings, for as good as their linebackers were and their sack rates this season and their outside edge rushers, they allowed 160 yards this season. Well, they're out too. So the teams that have done the worst are still in the playoffs. Make it make sense. Well, they allowed the run. They were patient. They're not overselling. They're not trying to sack the quarterback. So even though that the Lions allowed the most in 2024, it's not by a lot. It's minuscule when you weight it against the season. The other 15-2 team from this season that allowed just 18 fewer yards, again, was the Chiefs. So how can the Lions stop Jaden Daniels? The answer is they probably can't fully, but they're just going to have to limit him. That's it. You just have to limit him. If the Lions can keep him under 35, 40 yards this game, that's a win. If we can keep, their running backs to, 50, 60 yards or less this game, that's a win, as long as you're defending in the pass. So I think the most important thing is the Lions are going to have to get up and get up early. We're going to have to score on every possession, starting with the first one. And then we have to rely on the defense to just not give up a ton of points. This is going to come down to a game where, like Eric said earlier, we have to be able to establish the run. And when we establish the run, we keep Jaden off the field. And we keep our defense off the field. And if the defense can stay rested, their legs are going to be rested. And if they're rested, they're going to be able to react and play a little bit harder, go a little bit faster and a little bit longer against a dynamic offense that is trying to run it down your throat or confuse the hell out of you with an RPO. So I'm not as concerned, again, with the Lions giving up, some of the most yards to quarterbacks this season. It's not because of our edge rushers, right? It's not because of a lack of a pass rush. And I'm going to explain why in the next segment about sacks versus turnovers and why that some stuff just makes more sense when you're disciplined. Eric, your thoughts on that?
Yeah. This whole stopping running quarterbacks. So if you go back and look at this, so we let up 445 yards. Well, who's the one that got us the worst? I'm going to say it was Mr. Josh Allen.
Oh, yeah, for sure it was.
That was the one game where we had a quarterback that tore us up on the ground. We had a running back that tore us up on the ground. Those two right there, that amounted to so much of the running game against the Lions. That was their worst game of the year for allowing runs and a rusher over 100 yards, the only one all season. And the Lions were still only 6 points away in that game. And had the Lions done anything during their first two possessions of that game, this might be a different outcome. The Lions might have won the game, even though despite their defense giving up all those yards. So in the playoffs here against Washington, I think we are going to let them get away with a few things on the ground. I think we're going to let Jaden Daniels run around a little bit, but we're going to contain him so he doesn't run around a lot.
I guess I would agree with some of that. I hope that we don't allow a bunch in the run game. And guess what? We're just 2 subscribers away from hitting 8250. If you guys can get it done before I get off, we'll hand out a mini helmet while we're live today. All right, so this next segment is kind of long. I'm going to try to get through it as quick as I can. So here's the exercise. What I do when I look at how I evaluate sacks versus turnovers, or, how important it is to have a sack versus a turnover, it comes down to a few variables. One, when did the sack happen? And what was the outcome? Well, if it happens on first or second down, generally those sacks are kind of meaningless to a degree, unless they cause a fumble, right? Then obviously that sack worked. But if they happen on first or second down, you get a team backed up and they still go and get a first down, the sack was meaningless. It didn't do anything. So when I weight these sacks versus turnovers, again, turnovers the same thing. If you get a turnover, obviously you've given your offense another opportunity, but the most important thing that immediately happened on that turnover is you stopped the other team from scoring. You took a possession away. And now you are on the field taking more time off the clock. Hands down, turnovers are the most important thing in the game. They always have been. They always will be. Sacks have their place. But again, when you go into these different games and you have these different dynamics of offenses, you're not trying to get sacks every time. You're just not. Because if you sell out against the RPO, you're in trouble. And quickly, especially if you can't get home. And a lot of that is because the average sack in the NFL is over 3 seconds. Are you going to tell me that Jaden Daniels can't get the ball out in 3 seconds? Or are you going to tell me that Jaden Daniels can't run away from anybody that's coming after him? He's going to, just like Josh Allen did. And the exact same reason why Josh Allen only took 14 sacks the entire season. It is extremely difficult to sack a quarterback that has wheels. And that has always been proven. So the game that you're going up against has to match the defense that you're trying to use. So when I hear people crying about sacks, well, we didn't have enough sacks, is why we didn't win the game. Well, who did we go up against? Like the Bills, you shouldn't have expected any sacks, right? I mean, the last person I think for the Lions to sack Josh Allen was it James Houston? Did we even get a sack in that game? I don't even remember now. But James Houston did it. And ever since James Houston did it, the Bills changed their game. They changed their offense. Josh Allen is on the run way easier now and quicker because he's booting. He's getting out. He's getting out of the pocket. So anyway, here we go. Sacks versus turnovers, wild card weekend. We had 6 games. So I'm going to attribute points to turnovers. If you get a turnover and then the next team that got the turnover scores, they get points. If you get a sack and your team gets points. Now, normally I don't do this, but I'm doing it for sake of argument today. If your team gets points, you're going to get points for the sack category. So here we go. Texans and Chargers. We'll start here. First Texans was a fumble. So the first turnover, first play, you got a fumble on the first play, first possession. Chargers get 3 points off the Texans. So right away, you've got 3 points on turnovers for the Chargers, but 3 points for the turnover category. Now, next, you had the Texans throw an interception on their 4th possession. No sacks recorded during that possession. The Chargers didn't score on, and followed suit and also threw an interception on their next possession. So no points for either side. And then next up was the Texans fumble on the first possession of the second half. No points. It ended on downs. And there was an incomplete pass on 4th down. No sacks recorded during that possession. So no points. Third possession for the Chargers. In the second half, Herbert threw a pick 6 on the first play following a Texans punt. Obviously, again, no sacks recorded, but now that's 7 points for the turnover category. So far it's 10-0, turnovers versus sacks. After the kickoff, no sacks on the ensuing possession. Herbert throws another pick, which led to a field goal. So 3 more points added to the turnover category. Last possession for the Chargers, another pick ends the game effectively after the Texans run it out and win the game. So Texans points off of turnovers, they had 10, and the Chargers points off of turnovers, they had 3. Texas won the game 32-12. 32-12. And just by turnovers alone, they almost won that game. So out of the first game, turnovers gained 13 points. I'm sorry, they would have won the game off of turnovers. My apologies, because they had 13 points off of turnovers. So it's 13-12 at that point, right? Sacks gained 0 points. So out of this first matchup, you had 13 points going into the turnover category. Next up, we had Washington and Tampa. Tampa was the 7th best team in the regular season for sacks. They finished with 46. And Washington was the 12th best team with 43. Washington gave up the 8th most offensive sacks this season with 50. And the Bucs, 18th most with 40. So by that measure, right, the Bucs should have won this playoff game, right? Because number one, they were the 7th best team in sacks in the NFL, which is better than what Washington did. And Washington allowed the 8th most offensive sacks on Jaden Daniels with 50 on the season. So those 2 categories alone, you would think that Tampa's winning this game. Final score, 23-20 Washington. Here's how it went down. Baker was pressured 6 times. Jaden Daniels pressured 14 times. Each quarterback was sacked once. No interceptions, 1 fumble. Daniels had a sack It was 3rd and 12, or I'm sorry, 3rd and 2 at the Tampa Bay 20. Jaden Daniels was sacked at the Tampa Bay 20 for 0 yards, so no net gain or loss. Now the next play, 4th and 2, the Commanders went for it. So it did not end their possession. They went for it on the next plays, 4th and 2. However, they probably should have taken the points there. And Daniels threw an incomplete pass and turned it over on down. So Tampa punted on the next possession. So because there was no points, there's no points, period, for turnovers or sacks on that possession. The Mayfield sack. 1st and goal at Washington 2. Vita Vea and Jay Skewell reported in as eligible on that play. And Baker Mayfield was sacked at the Washington 4 for -2 yards. That sack was split by D. Armstrong and Bobby Wagner, which you're talking linebacker and defensive tackle. So Tampa scored a TD on the next play from 2nd and goal from the 4. No points awarded as the team that was sacked scored. Right? No turnovers. So if anything, we should award 7 points to the other side of the football, but we can't because that's not how the game works. Then you had turnovers, right? 1 turnover in here, 1 fumble. 11:58 in the 4th quarter, Mayfield fumbles and the Commanders score a TD on their ensuing possession. So 7 points to turnovers in this game. Now, at the end of this game, you have 7 points to turnovers, 0 points for sacks. That's a +7 margin for turnovers in this game. So through 2 games, we have 20 points for turnovers, 0 points for sacks. Then Green Bay and Philly. The Packers were the 8th best team in the NFL with 45 sacks. And the Eagles were the 15th best team in the NFL with 41 sacks. So again, by the sack numbers, if they matter most in some theories, then the Packers should have won this game. Final score, 22-10, Eagles. Now, each quarterback was pressured 11 times each and sacked 2 times each. But Jordan Love threw 3 interceptions. Jalen Hurts, 0. So on the very first play of the game, the kickoff, the Eagles forced a fumble and scored a TD 3 plays later. 7 points added to the turnover category. The first sack came against Jordan Love during the Packers' 3rd possession. 3rd and 3 at Green Bay 45. There was 6:10 left in the first. Jordan Love was sacked at the Green Bay 31 for a -14 yards. Huge. That's a big sack, right? Dropped the Packers to 4th and 17, and they punted. Now, the next possession, the Eagles scored a field goal, and Hurts was not sacked during that possession. So 3 points are going into the sack category because the sack forced them to punt, and the Eagles scored a field goal. 2 plays later, Jordan Love throws a deep pass without any pressure. I watched the play, and throws a pick to Slay. Eagles' next possession was a punt. So the interception didn't net us any gain, positive or negative. No points awarded. Next sack was on Jalen Hurts. That was the 5th possession of the first half. It was 1st and 10 at the Philly 28. It was 5:05 in the second, if you want to double check my work. Hurts was sacked at the Philly 25 for -3 yards. The sack was split by McDuffie and Wooden. Well, wouldn't you know, those are safeties and cornerbacks. Eagles punted. 3 plays later, no more sacks. No points awarded either side. The next sack was on Jalen Hurts. First possession of the second half. It was 2nd and 12 at the Philly 34 at 13:06 mark in the 3rd. Jalen Hurts was sacked at the Philly 27, -7 yards by Rashawn Gary, defensive tackle. Eagles punted 2 plays later, and the Packers scored a field goal on the next drive. So 3 points are now added to the sack category twice in this game because that sack caused a punt and a field goal for the next team. The last sack was on Jordan Love and the Packers' last possession. 1st and 10 at the Green Bay 30, 3:12 in the 4th. Jordan Love was sacked at the Green Bay 27 for -3 yards. And the Packers still had 6 more plays after that. And Jordan Love threw another pick as he rolled out right. He had no pressure in his face. Clean, right? Was far away from everybody. Nobody was within 3 or 4 yards of Jordan Love. So 7 points off of turnovers and 6 points off of sacks in this game. Through 3 games, we have 27 points off of turnovers and 6 points off of sacks. So 27-6 so far. The next game, Ravens and Steelers. So you can see why this took a while to do. The Ravens were the 2nd best team in the NFL with 54 sacks. And the Steelers were the 17th best team in the NFL with 40. So here we have our first win by a team that actually had a better sack ranking than their opponent. There were no interceptions. The Ravens had 4 sacks and 11 pressures. The Steelers had 1 sack and 12 pressures. The first sack on Wilson came at 1st and 10 at the Pitt 30 at 4:45 in the first. He was sacked for -4 yards by Pierce. The Steelers punted, and then the Ravens punted, so no points were awarded here. Then the next possession, where the Steelers punted again, then the Ravens scored again, making it 14-0 without any sacks to either team or turnovers since the first sack. The Steelers then get the ball and punt it again. Again, no sacks on Wilson. The Ravens get the ball and they score a TD. It's now 21-0. No sacks on Lamar during that possession. The second sack came in the second half on the Steelers' first possession. 2nd and 5 at the Pitt 33. 9:38 left in the third. Wilson was sacked out of bounds by Pittsburgh for 0 yards gain or loss by Matabuiki, which, again, another defensive tackle. The Steelers drove another 4 plays for a TD, making it 7-21. So the sack had no effect, right? They sack them. They still go down and score a touchdown. The first sack on Lamar came in the second possession of the second quarter. It was 1st and 10 at the Baltimore 30, 8:05 in the third. Lamar Jackson was sacked at the Baltimore 20 for a -10 yards by Highsmith, defensive tackle. Ravens drove 3 more plays for the TD, making it 28-7. Again, the sack had no effect on the game. The third sack on Wilson came on the third possession in the second half. Again, this is by Matabuiki. It was 3rd and 8, Pittsburgh 44. There was 23 seconds left in the third. Wilson was sacked at the Pittsburgh 36, -8 yards. Now that sack forced a punt. So good play for the Ravens. Punted on the next series, though. No points awarded. The last sack came on the final Steelers possession. It was 2nd and 15 at the Baltimore 43, 7:19 left in the fourth. Wilson was sacked at the 50 for -7 yards by Owe. I think it's Oweh. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. The Steelers drove 2 more plays and ended their time in the game. Now, you could make an argument here that the sacks could have helped, right? Great. How many teams have sacks on Lamar or Josh Allen is the question. The Bills gave up the least sacks this season with 14. The Ravens gave up the 3rd least with 24. Nobody has really sacked them all season. I mean, at those numbers, it's laughable. If the other 17 games didn't produce sacks at a high rate against the other 14 teams, then I guess really what makes us think, or why would we think that any other team is going to do something better than all of the other teams did during that regular season run for both teams? So just for grins, right? And to put this into perspective a little bit, Goff was sacked 33 times this year, 23rd most in the league. It's kind of crazy to think about how many times Goff was sacked, but it's really hardly any, right? Hardly any. And he's not a mobile quarterback. So anyway, through 4 games, we have 27 points off of turnovers and 6 points off of sacks. Next, we have the Broncos and the Bills. The Bills were the 18th best team in the NFL with 40 sacks, and the Broncos were the first place team, or the best team in the NFL, with 63 sacks on the season. Final score, I think you already know the answer, 31-7. Broncos got rolled up and smoked in this game. But by that, the pass rushers and sacks theory, the Broncos should have been the Super Bowl winners this season. Best defense, best sack numbers. But these are outside linebackers that are getting these sacks in a 3-4 defense. Totally different, right? Your edge rushers are your outside linebackers in that scheme. No interceptions in this game. Each quarterback was pressured 14 times and each sacked twice. I'm going to cut to the chase on this one so I can get to the next one. First sack on Bo Nix, 7 points added to the sack category because the sack interfered with that play. Second sack came on the Bills' third possession on Josh Allen. It forced a punt 2 plays later, and then the next possession, Denver missed a field goal, so there's no points. At the end of the half, third sack came on Josh Allen with the first possession of the second half. It was 3rd and goal. He was sacked at the Denver 9 for -3 yards. It was a good play by Denver because the Bills hit the field goal. It made them take a field goal. The sack, though, was kind of meaningless because, well, the Bills scored. Fourth and final sack of the game, last possession for Denver. It's 3rd and 3. Denver 37, 4:09 in the fourth. Nix was sacked at the Denver 23, -14 yards by Greg Rousseau. The game was over, 31-7. Sack was meaningless, right? Score was out of control. So through 5 games, we still only have 27 points for turnovers, now 13 points for sacks. It took us 5 games to even kind of close the gap, but we still have 14 points difference between sacks and turnovers. The last game, I'll get to in just a second, but the Broncos defense hasn't been really a top 10 defense in weeks, right? This was my overreaction or reality kind of question yesterday. I don't know if I really got to it, but the Bills scored 30 points off of a lot of teams, as evidenced by the number of 30-plus point games that they put up this season. The Broncos defense was supposed to contain them, a unit that allowed just 18.3 points per game, 3rd in the NFL, and 317 yards per game, 7th in the NFL. Didn't happen. So the reality is, regarding the Broncos defense, the unit hasn't been a top 10 unit since the start of December. If you take out the Week 18 game where the Chiefs rested their starters, and the Broncos have allowed 22 points per game to that point then, 13th in the NFL, they would have allowed 362 points per game, 24th in the NFL. Basically, the potential blowout by the Bills was coming. This included the playoff loss on Sunday. Now, the Broncos defense kind of faltered toward the end of the season as they made the playoffs off of the strength of Bo Nix's arm and their resurgent offense, less about the defense. So when you look at a team that has all these sacks and you think how good their defense should be, it was a myth, right? Because we're not looking at all of the layers and peeling it back. What happened to this team? Well, the numbers will tell you they were nowhere near a top 10 defense since December. They were letting up tons of yards, and they really weren't getting a ton of sacks until that Chiefs game, right? I mean, so you have to look at everything. Last game. Now, this is the game where I sat back and I'm like, oh, F. 9 sacks by Minnesota. This is going to blow up my segment. I'm going to be wrong. Here we go. Rams 9 sacks. Vikings 2 sacks. Darnold 1 interception. Sam Darnold has 3.21 seconds of time to throw in this game. He gets sacked 9 times because he held the frickin' ball. You know what's funny? Eric, I know I haven't brought you in on this yet, but you know how I said yesterday I thought that Sam Darnold was a deer in headlights? I saw the same thing pop up last night in a segment. I don't remember where it was from. I don't know who did it. It was some content creator. Oh, it was Perna. It was Perna on That's Good Sports. So I was watching it last night, and it was 6, 7, 8 hours after our show, and he had a deer in headlights. I'm like, that's so fitting. Like that's just so fun. Yeah. So the Rams, anyway, they run a 3-4, which again, it means that they have outside linebackers that are generally less than 250 pounds, and on the shorter side, fast, speedy guys, right? These are not defensive ends. They are outside linebackers as edge rushers. I want to make sure that we know that an edge rusher is a concept, right? Not a position. It's a concept. First sack on Darnold came at the 2nd and 11 at the Minnesota 29, 9:42 in the first. Sam Darnold was sacked at the Minnesota 19 for -10 yards by Byron Young, an outside linebacker who is considered an edge rusher, right, in this 3-4 defense. The Vikes moved the ball 11 yards on 3rd down and punted on 4th. The next possession, the Rams ended up nailing a field goal, so we're going to give 3 points to the sack category. I'm going to kind of spare you all of this because there's 9 sacks here. Let me kind of get to the cliff notes of it. 3 points on the next sack on Darnold goes to turnovers because, here we go. The Vikes moved the ball on 2nd and 3rd up to the 16-yard line and kicked a field goal. So the sack didn't matter, right? So should 3 points come off the board for sacks because the sack didn't matter? No, I can't. That's just not how it works. 3rd sack that came on Darnold. 2nd and 3 at the Minnesota 47. 12:42 in the second. He was sacked at the 35 by Kobe Durant. The second sack was by Kobe Turner. Now remember, he's a defensive tackle. The first sack was by Byron Young, who is an edge rusher. The third sack by Kobe Durant. He's a cornerback, mind you. The sack really didn't matter because the Vikes ended up with a first down after roughing the kicker penalty. And then the interception happened by Darnold, which ended the drive. So no points were added on the next possession for the Rams because they also punted after the interception. So no points added for interception. Fourth sack on Darnold, the fumble, scoop, and score. Interesting, right? Sam Darnold sacked at the 46, minus 8 yards, but it was yet again a cornerback, not an edge rusher, not a pass, not a defensive end. Cornerback sacking Darnold. Fumble, scoop, and score by Jared Verse. 57-yard touchdown. So another cornerback blitz and a sack. No edge, no linebacker, no DT. But yet we're going to award 7 points to the sack category. The fifth and sixth sack on Darnold was on the next possession after the fumble, scoop, and score. Darnold sucks. Darnold was sacked on second down by Gallimore and Young, but then managed a first down and then sacked again on fourth down and 2 at the 50 by Kobe Turner, again a defensive tackle. So the next series for the Rams, they scored a touchdown and ended the half, so no points awarded. Now, the next sack was actually on Stafford. It was late in the third. The Rams ended up moving the ball, third and fourth down, but they ended up punting. No points. Darnold's seventh sack. He was sacked at the 50 for minus 13 in the fourth quarter, at 12:54 in the fourth. And, hold on there. At 12:54 in the fourth. The sack was split by Hoke and Fisk. Again, not defensive ends, not edge rushers. This was Braden Fisk, a DT that racked up this sack. Darnold was sacked an eighth time at 4:53 in the fourth. And this time he was sacked at the Minnesota 47 for minus 8 yards. And again, by the nose tackle for the Rams, right? By Gallimore. The ninth and final sack on Darnold. It came at the Minnesota 12, minus 9 yards by Deontay Johnson. Finally, an edge rusher, a defensive end. Sacked Darnold. The overall score for Darnold in this game, he was sacked 3 times by an edge rusher out of all 9 sacks. He was sacked 4 times by a defensive tackle and 2 times by a corner. So 1/3 of the sacks in this game came from the outside. And the one thing that I've always been talking about is how the interior defensive linemen are the most important thing that you can add to a team to create sacks, but more importantly, to create turnovers, to put your quarterback in a vulnerable position. So the conversation on pressure and why not all pressures are created equal. If you start with the edge, when pressure comes only off of the edge, the offense is averaged a minus 0.303 expected points added per play, EPA for short. So only slightly below the overall mean or average of the NFL from all other plays. Now, pressure that comes from the interior or the nose position, which results in an average EPA of minus 0.213, respectively, which is a little bit below the overall average, and it's below just edge pressure at 0.303. So, 1/10 of a point. Now, in isolation, pressure off the edge provides slightly more value than pressure from the interior or the nose. But that's when we get into the most debilitating pressure stats and when it occurs, and that is when multiple positions get to the quarterback. When pressure occurs from both the edge and the interior, the offense is at the most tremendous disadvantage, averaging minus 0.632 EPA per play. So imagine for a moment, you've got Aiden Hutchinson, and now you've inserted DJ Reader. You have now just changed the dynamic of the pressure that you are able to add to your team by more than half a point per play. And it's double just than edge rushers alone. And it's triple just having an interior presence. However, both scenarios, well above average. I get it. But this is where it changes. When you get an interior pressure from 2 dominant defensive linemen, right? An interior defensive tackle and a nose tackle, just Aleem and DJ. That pressure occurs from the interior almost as a more valuable level than an edge pressure alone, right? Edge pressure is at a minus 303 per game. But the pressure from an interior and a nose pressure is at minus 275. So less than 25 100ths of a difference between edge and interior. Now, I could go on for probably another 30 minutes. And I've got all this stuff written down about all of these crazy stats that would sell you on the idea that interior pass rusher is the main reason why the Lions have had such a better season this year. And I might do it, tonight if I go live. We can talk about it some more. But I'm going to leave you with this. When EPA, expected points per average, is affected the most, you think about pressure speed. So EPA generated by time to pressure is something that has been calculated over and over and over again. Now, pressures that occur in 2.5 seconds or less, they cost the offense 0.34, 2 points per play. Okay? Pressure that happens over 2.5 seconds decreases. Now, the average pressure in a game, it's happening around 3 seconds a game or 3 seconds a play. But the pressure that comes from the interior is obviously the shortest distance, the shortest path to the quarterback. And the stability in pass rushing grades and scores is higher for interior pass rush than any other position on the field. And I'll talk about more of this tonight. Yes, I'm actually going to go live. It is Wednesday. We'll do a Wednesday night off the cuff. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. And I'm trying to sell you guys on this a little bit. And I know a lot of you already believe in it. A lot of you that know football understand exactly what I'm talking about right here. But for those of you that don't know everything about football, this is something that I spent the last 3 days putting together. The numbers are there. And when you look at the wild card weekend, this is something that I've been saying now for a couple of seasons. You look at the Super Bowl winners. You look at what has happened over the last 10 years. Well, number one, it's offense that wins more often than not. Last year was the only change to that tune. But go look at how many sacks there really are in these playoff games, and more importantly, the Super Bowl, and how did they lead to points or no points for either team? It's the turnovers. It's the turnovers that win football games. So where did we end up? Well, we ended up with, let me get to it. It's at the bottom here somewhere. The overall score between sacks and turnovers was come on. So 30 points for turnovers, 20 points for sacks. That was your score. So turnovers clearly have helped win the wild card round this weekend when you think about it. There was a lot of sacks in the Monday night game. There wasn't a ton of sacks over the main part of the weekend. But at the end of the day, it was the turnovers that led to more points. And that's why, against Jaden Daniels on Saturday, the Lions are going to have to win this turnover margin. That is one of the most important things out of the game this weekend. All right, final 30 to 60 to you, Eric.
All right. There was a couple things I wanted to get to today. Couldn't get to them today. We'll get to them tomorrow. I think tomorrow that we should include the chat a little bit more and maybe open up the phone lines to hear from you guys and see what you guys are thinking.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the phone lines are open. No one calls. They're open. Yeah. I tell everybody, hey, at 8:30, they're open.
How about tomorrow? We'll make a little announcement at the beginning. And then I wanted to talk about one little thing today that popped up. So Jeff Daniels was on the Tonight Show last night, and he sang his song about the curse of Bobby Lane. And if you go to jeffdaniels.com, you can download it for 99 cents, which I think I'm going to do today. I'm going to put it on my phone so I can listen to it on my way down to Ford Field on Friday.
Yeah, that's fun, man. And he's got a couple of songs now.
Yeah.
You know, he's got the curse song, and then he had the one that he just did a while back, which I think is a little different, but
yeah,
both really good. Looks like we're talking about euchre and cribbage and card games in the chat today.
Yeah. They were talking about my beard and my hair and
you guys really paid attention to that that college 101 session that we just went into called sacks versus turnover 101. It's actually like 303, but hey. Cake Man, big shout out to you, buddy. Member for 4 months today. Level 1 faithful. Says, shout out to Eric. I'm wearing the same hoodie. All right, Cake Man. Appreciate you being part of the channel as a valued member. Let's check. Where did we end up today? Did you guys get us to 8250 or what? Let's see.
We got to give away a helmet.
Oh, we did it. All right. We did it. So we are over 8250. We've got to give, have to give a mini helmet out. So we need to come up with trivia. Eric, what do you want to do for trivia?
What was the score in 1991 when the Detroit Lions lost to the Washington Redskins?
As he's chewing on chips.
No.
Cookies.
Chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah.
Wife made them yesterday.
All right, so there you go. Do you know the answer? We've got 41-10. I can't remember the answer. I know we just talked about it the other day.
41-10, that's it.
It was 41-10?
Yep, that is it.
All right, so the first person in the chat was Mr. Kevin Barr. And matter of fact, Kevin Barr, new name, or at least that I've seen. If I haven't seen you in here before, I apologize. But before I went into that long sermon, as you guys called it, he had some good points in here. He had this point 1, get points on all possessions. 2, create at least 1 turnover. 3, limit the scramble drill. That's a big one, especially for Jaden Daniels, limiting that scramble drill. And 4, be loud. We got to make Daniels very uncomfortable, which I think all of those 4 points are great. And yes, Kevin Barr, you won. So Kevin, just email me at mailbag@rockdon.com. Put in, make sure your name and your mailing address is in there, and we'll send it to you guys, or we'll send it to you today or tomorrow. I'll get it into the mail. So there was a question. Someone's asking how old I am. Maybe we should just leave that for you to wonder. Put it this way. I've been a fan of the Lions for over 40 years.
So he's 27 years old.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess, right. I've been a fan of the Lions for over 40 years. I'm definitely over 40. I'm not older. I'm not as old as Eric, though, I don't think.
I'll tell you this. I was in high school in 1991 when we played the Washington Redskins at the Silver. Oh, no, it wasn't at Silver. It was at the Redskins. And I believe it was that season that my family took me to the game against Dallas. And it was the Barry versus Emmitt Smith game, if you guys remember those games back in the day. And I went to the Gibraltar Trade Center and I got a Lions hat. It was all bedazzled, with like diamonds on it. I thought I was super cool. And I bought a leather jacket at Burlington Coat Factory, because we don't have that kind of stuff up here where I live. This was not even once a year thing. This was like a once every 3 or 4 years kind of thing for me to get to go down and go do my school clothes shopping and go see a game. And it was awesome. Got to see Barry run all over the place that day. He had over 100 yards, had a touchdown or 2. Emmitt Smith had a decent day, but the Lions came out victorious in the end. And it was pretty awesome to go down to that game in high school, and then watching them win that game against Dallas in the playoffs, and then to go on to play against Washington, who ended up going on to win the Super Bowl and losing 41-10. I still hold that heartache in my chest to this day. So for me, this weekend, this Saturday, this is still a revenge game. I don't care what anyone says. For us old school, hardcore Lions fans like me and my dad, this one stings still. And we need revenge for what happened, 30 something plus years ago. So I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's get revenge. Let's mark that one more off our list.
Okay, so I just had a chance to go back to look at some of these messages, and you guys got to understand, like when I'm into a segment and I'm reading everything that I wrote, I can't pay attention, to what you guys are saying. Like that's what Eric's supposed to help me to do, but
that's what I was doing today.
Yeah. So I don't know what I missed. Someone said in here that I'm totally oblivious to your conversation in the chat today, but I mean, I see crap in here like you guys are talking about hairlines, you're talking about cards, anything but the Lions. What in the world is going on in this chat today?
Yeah. They're out of control today. They're having fun.
My goodness. All right, so our next sponsor is gonna be, I guess, someone that's gonna help your hair grow back. I'll figure it out.
I got lots of hair. I don't need any more.
I don't know.
Dude, it's growing out my ears. I got so much. I don't need any more.
Hold on. So J-Rod says he graduated a Viking. Was that in Wyoming, Michigan?
Oh, yeah. They do have a team called the Vikings there somewhere over there. There's a couple, one up in Traverse
my high school were the Vikings.
Yeah.
The funny farm. Yeah, you guys are nuts in here. So let's see.
Yeah, see, look at all these old timers like me. I brought back a bunch of memories talking about them games at the Silverdome. And what a great place the Silverdome was. For real, man. They had this giant parking lot and then parking lots all surrounding it. Great places to get tailgate for everyone. You got to see everyone and then you just walked right into the game. There was no having to walk a mile from Eastern Market and going to this parking lot or that.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. We had to walk some distance. We had to go up over the bridge, over the highway.
You parked in the wrong place.
No. That's just where all the tailgate fun was and all the good tailgates. We parked there.
Were you up in the grass field?
No, there was like some big dirt parking lots on the other side. So we parked there when we went to the, what is that soccer, that World Soccer? It was held at Pontiac Silverdome. What is it called?
Yeah.
The World Cup. So we went to the World Cup. We parked over there, but we always seem to park over there. Is in the other side. So anyway, all right, I'm going to get rolling. We got a lot to do today. And Eric, you got some stuff to do, I think, later on here too. So
yeah.
All right, you guys have a wonderful day. We'll see you guys back tomorrow morning, and then I'll be back on tonight. We're going to talk a little bit more of sacks and turnovers. Obviously, we'll talk more Lions, and we'll see what hits the airwaves today on your Detroit Lions. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks for all of the new subscribers. You guys are the best. Wouldn't be here without you, of course. And thanks for getting us over another mark. Now we've got 249 to go to give out another mini helmet. Get busy. Send this out to your family, your friends. I don't care who. Make them a Lions fan. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye. The season is here, and you want the latest news and rumors on your Detroit Lions. Head to sportspider.com. That's sports, SPYDER.com, where you can get your Lions news and all your sports in one place. Man, this site is packed with your favorite podcasts, live news, articles from local writers, and insiders, all updating in real time. Not just the Lions, every major sports team, including MMA, UFC, and so much more. Don't want to waste time searching? Sign up for free. Create your ultimate sports news hub. You control what hits your feed at SportsSpider, your number one source for all your sports. Visit sportspider.com today, right after the show.
Hear them voices rising high. Every morning, feel that passion, let it fly. Talking about the Lions, blue and silver pride. With the podcast, we're rolling, take that ride. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Yeah. Football dreams in every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Each play, each kick, we feel alive. Echoes in the city as the fans arrive. The heart of the motor in the screen. We're bound together by a football dream. Rise and grind, Detroit's calling out. Yeah. Football dreams in every shout. Tune in, feel the energy ignite. Oh, rise and grind, take flight. Hey, feel the unity, the pride electrified. There under the stadium lights, where legends thrive.